All right, everybody. Welcome to Dover International Speedway. We are going to get started with our media availabilities in advance of Sunday's Dryden 400 with the Monster Energy Series. We are joined by playoff driver Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford, who comes into the round of 12 as the fourth seed and is looking for his first win here at the Monster Mile. We will open up to questions. Please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless microphone to you. We'll go to Dustin to start off.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Joe, I want to ask you something about Talladega next week. We have seen this year where the Chevrolet teams have more closely worked together. How has that changed things? Obviously, I know you've led a lot of laps. You guys have still been up there. How does that impact things, and how does that compare with how this new package has impacted some of the racing there?
Yeah, it definitely affects everybody, right? And I've said this before about super speedway racing. It always evolves. You don't have to change the rules of the cars to watch super speedway racing evolve. It's the teams and the drivers that figure out new ways to gain an advantage on someone. And whether it was this rules package or last year's or 10 years ago, drivers and teams are going to figure out ways to become stronger. And what you've seen here recently is the manufacturers really find a way to become selfless within each other to be able to gain an advantage amongst their competition and control the race. And I feel like Chevy's kind of taken that to the next level here recently. To where we all have to figure out a way to beat that. They did a very good job in these first few super speedway races where they controlled the race on us, and we need to figure out a way to take them down again, which we know we can. We know we have the speed in our cars, as Fords to be able to do that. We just all have to be on the same page together. And a lot of times it's easier said than done, right? I mean, we all still want to win, right? We all want to be competitors. The facts are, as much as everyone works together, there's only one winner at the end of the day, right? And then you can't get the same amount of points if you finish fifth as you do for first. So those are the things that all these teams have to work through to try to figure out how to be okay with it, and that's where personalities and the human element becomes a big player in that. Yep.
We'll go up front to Steve.
Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. Joey, when we look at the three race groupings of the playoffs, when you come into the new round, and I know part of it's contingent upon how your previous round went and what you're in, is it something that the energy picks up, the anxiety picks up, and you release, or does it pick up continually over the 10 races, or are there ebbs and flows? Again, I know it's contingent on how you're doing, but are there ebbs and flows over the 3 race rounds?
Yeah, I mean, if you win this week, you're going to breathe pretty good next couple of weeks, right? Sure, yeah. That's what you think of the 19 team. They got to breathe really well through the first round, and you get that win early, everything's great. If you put yourself behind the 8 ball when you leave here at Dover, and then you're looking at Talladega saying, I got a 50% chance of finishing this race, you're not sleeping too well. And so it's why it's so important when you come here to Dover to have a solid finish. You got to try to score a lot of points in this race. That part's key. Stage points, finishing points. If you can grab the win, that's awesome. This is definitely the round you want to do it. But it's one race at a time. But I do notice that yes, that pressure ratchets up each race in that round, and maybe when you get the reset, you get a second to breathe again because you're kind of you see where we're at when we're reset. But the pressure that those guys had last race going into the Roval, that were anywhere near that cut going into the Roval, that's a stressful weekend. The last round was all about scoring enough points to where you didn't have to worry about the Roval, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen there.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll go to Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Do you get stressed out or worry about the playoffs? I mean, even like covering them, there's a lot on your mind, and I can't even imagine. But yet you guys are professional drivers at the elite level. Do you stress out over it?
Well, I was just on the radio a minute ago, and they asked the same question. I said, there's a reason why most of these drivers are bald. I don't know if it's the helmet. It might be the stress piece. But, it's just a lot that there's a lot that you have to deal with as as a driver and as a leader, there's a lot that you have to overcome and figure out. And, when the pressure's on this time of year, it either makes you better or you're going to fall apart. And it kind of depends on that person. And a lot of times you have to figure out what works for you, because what works for Kyle Busch or Jimmy Johnson or Brad or whoever, it's different, right? And you have to go through these high pressure moments a few times to understand what makes you tick, what makes you work. And that's why the experienced guys have such an advantage, because they've been through this before and they know how to handle it, that pressure and stuff, to where the pressure actually makes them better. So I feel like we're in a good spot for that reason, that we've been here a few times before.
So what works for you?
I can't tell you that.
Fetal position. In the fetal position at your house, we don't see that side
honestly,
of it.
I think I just find ways to enjoy it and have fun, and really, honestly, if I look at the past, the playoffs have been the times that we've scored the most wins and scored the most points throughout these 10 races. So that alone kind of gives me the confidence to, fire away at these playoffs and feel good about it.
I'm going to stay up here in the front.
Rich Colbert, Motor Racing Network. A two-part question talking about Talladega next week. Strategy-wise, for the race itself, do you have a plan in place? Are you going to fall to the back, go to the front? I mean, what is the strategy
The
for
strategy is
Talladega?
never fall to the back. I know that. It's always go forward. That's the one thing I do know. But as far as Talladega, it's just hard to say right now. We got to get through Dover and understand what our situation is points wise. But for us as a race team, I'm not good at right around the back. It's not me. I can't do it. Some can. I usually just don't have the patience to do it well enough. And then I usually end up getting in a crash trying to get back to the front. So I'm better off just racing the whole time. That works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, right? It's different for everyone. Everyone might have their own approach, but for us, it's going to be racing, and I can pretty much say that no matter what happens here today or this weekend.
Also, Talladega celebrating 50th. It seems like everyone's celebrating their 50th. What does Talladega mean to you personally?
I mean, Talladega is, it's a historic racetrack, right? It's something that, a lot of times when you ask fans what's their favorite track, they say Talladega a lot of times. A lot of times they say that. It's a special place. It means a lot to win there. It's so hard to win there. A lot of times you don't know you got it until you get there, because anything can happen, good or bad. It's one of those racetracks that there's been plenty of times that we've left there angry, and unfortunately there's been quite a few times that we left there with a smile on our face and a trophy. So, it's one of those places that you don't leave there just saying, "Oh, it was an okay day." You're either mad or happy every time. You're definitely gonna have some emotions you got to work through.
We'll go back to Dustin and then to Steve.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Joey, we've already seen in the playoffs cases where playoff cars and non-playoff cars have had issues, and obviously that kind of stuff happens a lot throughout the season. I understand that. I'm just curious if you notice, even after 3 races, is there more pushback from non-playoff drivers feeling like that playoff drivers can use them up, and so they're kind of pushing back? Or is this is normal NASCAR racing, there's 40 cars out there, stuff's going to happen? And are you guys trying to take more advantage of these guys with what's at stake?
It seems pretty similar to other years. There might be just a couple cases that have been shown a little bit more. But I'd say most of the time, I don't see special privilege for playoff guys out there. I don't. There's still a lot that those other teams are racing for. Teams that aren't in the playoffs are still racing for a lot. As a playoff driver, you hope to get a little more room, a little bit more respect, but you can't expect it. You can just hope for it. But most likely, they still have something to race for, and you have to be big enough to understand that piece of it. From someone that's been on both sides of the fence, I've kind of understand that piece where, if you didn't make the playoffs, you're just trying to get some solid finishes, trying to build up for your next year. It's important for them, right? And we shouldn't be the ones taking that away from them or expecting special privileges. You just got to go out there and race them like normal. You hope that you get a little bit more room because of what you're racing for, but you can't expect it.
You referenced the year you missed it. Was that eye-opening how a non-playoff driver might have been treated since you hadn't? It had been a few years since you'd been in that role.
I wouldn't say it was very eye-opening. I mean, maybe a little bit because you're just trying to have a good run. Because if you missed a playoff, most likely it's just you've had a tough year, right? And you're just looking for a good finish anywhere you can. You're looking for anything you can grasp of something positive. And that's really the situation that we were in a few years ago when we missed them. It was just, man, if we can, a top 5 felt like a win, right? It was like, okay, I don't care if we're in the playoffs or not. Like, we need to start building for next year, which ended up being our championship year. So you can imagine you never stop trying to turn the ship around and trying to set yourself off for some momentum into the off season. Yep.
Steve Post, Motor Racing Network. Joey, in a couple hours, you're going to climb aboard your race car. The first few laps here at Dover, the elevation change, the sensation, the feeling. I know you're a veteran driver. You've been through this before, but what's that like? Does it still get your attention? What is that like when you roll out onto this concrete and get those first few laps up to speed?
Yeah, you got to respect this racetrack. You don't just go out there and, you go out there and go as fast as you can first lap, no matter what. That's what you do. But it's one of those places that always gets your attention. It's one of those places. Every time we qualify here, I get out of the car and I got the shakes. I'm telling you, it's something that you're pushing so hard because in race runs you kind of find that your limits. You know where you're at. That you can kind of reset at a certain point in the corner to make sure you're low enough on the exit to where when you come up out of that banking, you don't just slap the wall. But in qualifying, you don't know what you got until you get in the corner, and it has to be your best lap. So you push harder than your mind says is okay. And when you do that, there's obviously more risk, and you know that because you're pushing yourself harder and you feel comfortable with. But the reward is what you go for is the pole, right? And you have to do that to go faster on this place. So it makes that really fun, really hard because you're fighting against your instincts. But it's definitely a tough place to lay down some fast laps for sure. Yep.
Do we have anything final for Joey? All right, Joey, thanks for joining us. Good luck this weekend.
Cool. Thanks, guys.